everybody again. This is my next interview with, kind of real estate players in our market and in my sphere. Super excited to have Nimesh Patel with me. We've been together for decades and we'll tell our whole story, but want to kick this off. Nimesh, let's start off with just quick introduction. Give me the 2-minute life story, not your real estate story. Let's start with your life story. Where did it all begin? Baby Nimesh.
2-minute life story. Wow. I talk a lot, so I don't know how I'm going to do
That's
that.
why I had to give you 2 minutes.
Otherwise. Yeah. Well, life story is this. My parents are from Africa, and I was born in London, moved to America for the dream. Lived in California for a little bit, but just been a good old Southern Texas boy growing up here. Met a lot of people.
When did you get to Texas?
I got to Texas in 1982.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm old.
That's awesome.
I got to Texas in 82, grew up in the Fort Bend County area, and met a lot of people, got around, had fun, got educated a little bit, and then just experienced life from there on out.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Colony Bend Elementary School here.
Wow.
We were the Colony Bend pioneers back then, and went to First Colony Middle School, Clements High School, which is one of the top high schools around, which, you look back now and you're like, wow. Then I went to UT, and then came back here, moved out to California for a little bit, wanted to be part of that .com era, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then had great experiences out there and moved back to Texas because I missed the folks.
Yeah.
I missed the Texas folks.
Your network, your sphere, everybody was here. And, the UT kind of network is strong, right?
Well, the UT network was great because I knew a lot of people in Houston, but what happened was when we went to UT, people came all over from Dallas.
Right.
They came in from San Antonio. They came from everywhere. So then now our network grows even bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, we're those type of people. You're the same as I am. We like to get to know everybody out there and see, what we can offer them or what they can offer us, just on a friendship level or a business level, whatever it is. And so when you start getting into that many people that you start trying to figure out your life and hey, how can I turn this into something positive for me,
Create maybe a business out of it.
Right.
So perfect segue. Let's talk about where was your first inkling of real estate? Where did it start and how did you get?
It was by accident, honestly. My mother and I were, when I got back from California, I worked for some big companies. I worked for IBM. I worked for Charles Schwab. I came back from California. I said I just didn't want to work for a big corporation anymore. And, I was doing IT at the time.
I could not see you at a Charles Schwab desk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing, And of course, Charles Schwab's based out of San Francisco. So obviously we had 8 buildings and it was fun. It was a neat experience in my 20s, but I did not want to work for anybody anymore. So I started looking into businesses, hey, that's part of my blood. My parents had businesses. I'm hey, let me see what I can do to try to get a business. But you know how hard that is when you just don't know what you want. You don't have a passion for anything. So, I started looking at clubs, bars. I don't know if you remember that. I remember I called you up one day and said, hey, what do you think about this bar over here in Midtown? I looked at car washes. I looked at, my brother and I looked at burger flipping joints, anything and everything to just be our own business. And then as we were doing that, my mom said, hey, well, why don't you get your real estate license just to get it? And honestly, the only reason I did it was because this whole weird little boy had this mentality of, I'm going to be rich one day. And what do rich people do? They invest money into real estate. Well, if I have my license, maybe it'll make it easier. I didn't know anything about the business at all. I didn't know what a realtor really was or anything. Just if I get my license, I'm going to be rich one day and I'm going to invest in my own self. So I started getting my license, but it just happened to be at the perfect timing of all of my friends in that 25 to 35-year-old range of everybody's buying houses. So I started helping them one-on-one, one by one. Liked it. It really had a passion for it. I loved looking at houses. I know everybody likes saying that, but I loved looking at different styles and buildings and things like that. And so just started developing a passion for it, and then it just took off.
And so let's fast forward for a quick second. Billions in real estate has been under your kind of umbrella of oversight, right? What a journey it's been.
Never would have thought this, right? And, for some of the guys that are listening that don't know, I mean, you and I did this together 20-something years ago. You were on a different side, I was on a different side, but we collaborated. And yeah, you're right. Just like you, I'm the same way. I never, ever would have envisioned that I've overseen billions and billions and billions of real estate transactions and volume and meeting people from all over the world. Not talking about just people that came here to Houston. I've gotten to travel and meet people and speak and share and learn and all of that.
And so let's kind of unpack it a little bit. So we'll go back now. So you started as a realtor, right? Obviously, probably working at various brokerages, kind of learning the ropes. Walk me through that into the next step of starting your team, and then ultimately the brokerage, or vice versa, whichever came first. Let's talk about that a little bit. Walk me through that journey.
Sure. Yeah. As an individual realtor, I did fairly well at the beginning, but what did I know? I didn't truly have a coach or mentor, too much. I looked out in the industry. I was very curious. So I looked out in the industry and saw a couple of people that I tried to emulate. Obviously putting it into my own way and my own creativity and, my own ethics and all of that. And just kept getting better. And like with anything in life, as you start getting better and you start growing and you have more of it, you have to build on it, or you're just going to get caught up in that, right? So I had to build a team. And it just kind of coincided at the same time of me saying, hey, I also want to be a broker, because I wanted to share. I remember when I first started, one of the first things I said as a real estate agent was, I want to save this industry one deal at a time, because I felt like, I felt like there was too many people out there that were investing the biggest amount of money that they have into housing, and they weren't being led the proper way. So I told myself, I'm going to go out there and lead people the right way and save the industry one deal at a time. Well, as that mentality kept going, which helped me become successful, I turned it into another mentality of, I also want to share this with with realtors as well. Let me buy a brokerage. So I bought the brokerage. I also created my team kind of at the same time, so I can have leverage to be able to do both things at the same time. That's kind of where I'm at.
So for somebody that's kind of newer starting out, unpack the business of a real estate brokerage. Like, how does it flow? How does it work? Like, it's one thing to be a realtor and just kind of transactionally, making sales, right? But building a business about it, right? What is that? How does that work? Give me the kindergarten version.
The kindergarten version is literally, as a realtor, what are we doing? We're wearing every single hat possible. The thing that I realized, a couple of years into my business, was that I had to treat myself as a business. I'm not a realtor. This is not a job. This is my career. And as my career, I have to identify myself as a business. So like with all the Fortune 500 companies and things like that, I started comparing myself to them. And as silly as that sounds, what I mean by that is, you have to have a marketing department. You have to have a listing coordinator. You have to have et cetera, et cetera. You have to have all these things. Well, as a regular real estate agent that's just getting into it, you're wearing every single one of those hats. As you start understanding what's a dollar producing activity for you, you realize that this might be a $10 an hour job. I need to outsource that. This might be a $12 an hour job. I need to outsource that, because my valuable time is the $100 an hour job or the $500 an hour job. Right. So that's kind of what I started understanding, that if I'm going to treat myself as a business, then I need to hire to that.
Yeah.
And as I started hiring to that on the brokerage level and on the real estate level, but let's take it back to the agents level, I started realizing that at the very least I need to start with an admin. Yep. Because the admin can do the 70% of real estate transaction that I don't want to do, because my best use of time is out in the field with
finding more business.
Finding more business, right? Absolutely. So that's kind of the kindergarten version of how I started doing that. Most agents don't treat themselves as a business. They really don't. And just like in any business in all of America, if you're not concentrating on your business itself, you're gonna drown.
So step one is, start to operate as a business, right? We'll love that. Like, that's the Jay-Z.
Well, yeah,
I'm not a business,
but
man.
having a
I'm
P&L,
business man.
Yeah, Jay-Z. But having a P&L, people didn't even realize that you have to have a P&L. It was interesting when you ask agents, "Hey, how'd you do last year?"
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I made $100,000." But did you?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Net that?
Did you net? Exactly. See,
Right.
there you go. You understand.
Yeah.
You use the word net. When I started talking to people about that, they didn't understand what that meant. So after I started breaking it down for some of these guys, they made $100,000 gross, but they netted $60,000.
Right.
Well, then, okay, that's not as good as
marketing
saying that, right?
expenses, sign expenses, you
Anything,
name it. Yeah,
everything.
all of it.
So once you start looking at yourself as a business, then you can start understanding the verbiage of, okay, I want to net $100,000. I don't want to gross $100,000, right?
So take me from being kind of that all right, I've got a little bit of a micro team, call it, right? You got a, transaction coordinator, maybe an admin. Uh, what is like a 10-man, 20-man team? How do people level up? What does that look like?
The interesting thing is that I've analyzed quite a few teams. I've actually been able to, fortunately, been able to
Yeah,
travel
you
the
have some
country and speak
great
at,
roster of
yeah, and
teams.
even my own roster of people that have been here and people that are still here. I've helped them build. The interesting thing about it all is they're all different. They're all different. Ultimately, you've got to figure out what you're going to be content with and what you're trying to do. But if you're trying to just have leverage enough to be able to take your kids to school and be there at games, and you don't want to manage 18 people, fine, you need to have one or two people on your team. As you start identifying exactly what you want in life is, um, from your career and from your personal side, then you start putting things together. Most of the teams that I've been able to coach or mentor, and even including my own build, it's been all about growth, 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 growth. If I can sit here and help people grow, then their name gets bigger, their transactions get larger, their volume gets larger, and their net income gets better. So then you have to start developing systems and processes to put
Just
into
like any
place.
business.
Like any business, yeah, like any business. So that once you start understanding back to your roles of how many hats you're wearing, well, which hats can you take off and pay someone else to do? And then from there, how much can your business sustain when you're adding so much more salary to your
Right.
business, right?
Yeah. So, I've seen a common denominator around successful teams. It starts with that first team lead who's developed a brand,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
You got the Nimesh Patel group, right? So like, walk me through where you feel like it hit that tipping point of like, wow, this is, my name is kind of crossed over in the market. People know, people calling me versus me calling them, right? There's like that
Yeah.
journey where it's like, whoa, wait a minute, my phone's starting to ring and I don't have to go out and hunt anymore like a young pup agent that I had to, right?
I love that you said that, right? But I also loved that you said that developed a brand. All of these agents these days, they don't understand. Oh, not that they don't. Some of them do, but you have to develop that brand for that reason. There's so many. What's the name of our game? It's lead generation.
Absolutely.
In all sales, it's lead generation for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But there's 18 different ways to attack it. And one of them is buying leads. One of them is, your sphere. One of them is social media. Whatever it is, there's so many different ways and avenues. But ultimately, if you don't have a brand and a good brand to market around, then it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. Creating that brand for yourself, and all of that is from the experience of what you've done with transactions in the past and the people that you helped along the way. And then once that brand is there, you have to find like-minded people that are going to continue to push your brand, push that brand. And so when you're talking about how to develop more, I mean, I've seen some people that are smart, very intelligent. I've seen people that are, go-getters. I've seen a lot of that. But if they don't believe in my brand, I don't want them here. Right. And so it's not about just trying to find the best at this or best at that. It's literally who's going to take your brand to the next level, because they believe in the same.
Yeah, your team is an extension of you, right?
They are 100%. I can't be at, we sell well over 200, 300 homes a year.
Right.
I can't be at every single one of those homes.
Of
Right.
course,
It's just
yeah.
physically
It's not
impossible.
humanly possible, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have other teams, a lot of my friends are in the industry, they have massive teams. They're doing 500, 800 transactions a year. That person is not there all the time, but you don't want to lose the ideals of how you started, and you don't want to lose your brand. You don't want to lose your name. You don't want to lose the service, the way you do things. You don't want to lose that, so you have to teach your team to do the same thing. So they are an extension of you.
Hence systems and processes, right?
Always.
That's how you defend the quality, right?
Yeah.
You don't sacrifice quality. Like, working with one of your great agents still translates into the same service and standards that you want
Absolutely.
under your name, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some challenges. What are some challenges of running, running a business, running a team, real estate transactions, sales? I mean, it never ends, but
Yeah,
let's talk about some stand out for you.
Yeah, here's one of them that stands out for me the most out of all my years of running a team or running the brokerage, right? Is I had a hard time sleeping at night because I really want everyone to do well. I really do. If you know me, you'll see very quickly that I want all the people around me to do extremely well. What I had a hard time sleeping at night with is that I wanted it more for that person than that person wanted it for themselves.
Mm.
And it was kind of interesting for me to, when I finally hit to the point where I'm constantly teaching, mentoring, coaching these people, to realize that they're not going to do it. I finally said, you know what? I can't want it more for myself, for them.
Sure.
They have to want it. If they don't, I need to get rid of it, right? So then I was able to sleep better at night from that.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
probably been my biggest challenge,
I think
having people not connect, the same
yeah.
way.
I think being a salesperson, it's you eat what you kill, right?
Right.
And so you have to have this hunter's mindset. Not everybody naturally has it day one. It's, some people develop it over time. But I think as a leader, you need to, find the ones that are going to be hungry enough to want to go out and hunt, right? And develop them, give them the skills that you've learned.
Teach them
over
how
the
to
years.
hunt.
Yeah.
Teach them how to hunt, but they have to want to hunt.
Correct.
They have to want to
Yeah,
hunt.
yeah. And so and it's okay because there's a place in the entire ecosystem for everybody, right? But if you want to be a hunter and you want to want to build and do those things as part of your journey, embracing great mentors is a big part of it, right?
Very true.
I was gonna shift to that. Who have been some of your mentors over the years?
Wow, I've had quite a few different ones. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have good ones right off the start. Right, I didn't know to look for it. But then I started looking on my own. You're gonna laugh here, but one of my mentors has been you.
Ah,
Honestly, hey, I'm gonna say you're my younger brother, but honestly, watching how you have developed, how you actually grew yourself, grew your team, went from business to business, tried a few different things. I mean, who am I not to watch that and learn from that, right?
well, first of all, it's mutual, but thank
Yeah.
you. Keep going.
Yeah. So, and then I started getting into a few things. That I guess one of the most turning points of my life was probably about, I want to say 13 years ago, 12 years ago, when David Scott, he came in and started mentoring me to run the brokerage properly. He used to own a Keller Williams brokerage.
Okay.
He actually had one of the most successful ones in the whole country. And he retired. And then he decided that he wanted to come out of, and he actually wrote all of Keller Williams' educational material. So
Nice.
he knows what he's doing. So he started coming to my office and mentoring me directly. And, when you're paying $1,000 a month for mentoring and coaching, at first you're thinking to yourself, well, what is this, right?
Right.
And then you look at that 1,000 and like, I should pay you more because of what you helped me develop into. So I like David Scott. And we're talking about industry people. So I like right now the president and CEO of Remax, Nick Bailey. I mean, his attitude and his willingness to switch things over right away when he sees something's wrong. I mean, he's taught me quite a bit, but I will tell you probably my number one mentor of all time is my mom.
Your mom. I knew
Yeah.
it.
You saw that coming?
I knew
You
that
saw
was
that
coming.
coming? Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom. She ran a successful business, very successful business, and she did it raising two kids, two crazy kids, me and my brother, and being married to my dad, So watching
pretty
her,
crazy kids, right?
watching her like being growing up, knowing that she was the nicest woman in the world, nicest lady in the world. Yet when I used to work for her in the summer times, from school, watching how she managed people, watching how she got people to do things, watching how she got people to work together, and not just to do things, but watching how she managed people to do things better,
Yeah.
For an overall goal. I think that's probably what I learned the most,
That's awesome.
from
awesome.
her. And then, I still...
Nobody knows you better.
Yeah, nobody does.
Yeah.
And, to this day, she still treats me like I'm 12, or maybe even 5 sometimes, but there's still some great wisdom in her little chide remarks towards me of, treat me like a little kid, like, hey, go clean your room. I'm like, hey, mom, I'm 48, but that's cool, But then there's a reason why she's saying it. So I try to dive deep into why she's saying it because I learned so much from her all these years.
Well, mama knows best. That's universal theme for all of us, right? You say she treats you like you're 5, and those of you that can't see the background, there's cereal boxes of Fruity Pebbles and Lucky Charms right in the background.
Love my cereal.
Maybe she knows exactly what she's doing.
She knows her kids.
She knows her kids. So let's talk a little bit about kind of, you said you hinted on kind of like what keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
What these days, it's a crazy market, right? It's ever changing. We know that.
Ever changing.
But what's keeping you up at night in this industry, in this business, real estate sales? right, is a business of itself, right? What's keeping you up at night right now?
To be honest with you, I don't think a lot keeps me up at night anymore. But if you're talking about what am I concentrating on, every morning I wake up, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about my agents.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the agents that have not been in the industry for 20 years like I have.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of things, obviously. I've seen the ups and downs. I mean, we can go on and talk about the generic, hey, the crash of 2007, and 8 and 9 and all that. I've seen the ups and downs. I've seen hurricanes come through. I've seen a lot of things. Everything affects our business. And so the ones that have only been doing it for 2 or 3 years or 4 years or even 6 years, they haven't seen the craziness of the market that's been going on. And I hate saying that word crazy, to be completely honest with you. Another mentor of mine now is a guy named Jared James, great real estate coach and motivational speaker out there. And he said, stop using the word crazy. It's complex,
Mm-hmm.
it's complicated,
Yep.
um, but it's one of those things where I feel like I'm okay because I've been through a lot of things. How do I convey that to my agents? How do I tell them it's going to be all right and here's what you have to do to
Yeah.
get
So
through
like,
this?
you know, again, I call us dinosaurs, 20 years in the industry. So like we've seen high highs, low lows,
Hmm.
right? And that'll be consistent. Like it's consistently inconsistent. Let's call it that.
There you go.
Right. However, there's something to be said about building a business that can stay steady through the ups and downs, right?
Correct.
So I think, we don't get too fat when everything's going crazy, right? And on, sorry, going on the highs, but we don't lose sight of the long term when that's happening because
True.
you reap the rewards. And then also when the low lows, you don't kind of get yourself, backed into a corner, not knowing what to do. So developing good systems, clearly, right?
Well,
The brand.
But you said the word. You said consistency.
Yeah.
Right. How do we stay consistent in the highs and the lows, and the middles and the whatever life throws at us? That's the number one key. I mean, that's the key. And I've read quite a few about top businesses and corporations around the world. Right. And here's something that stuck out with me. I read this, I don't know, maybe almost 20 years ago, honestly.
Yeah.
And it said that basically you look at the top 500 and you see that when there's a down market, what's the number one thing people do? They try to alleviate some of their cost.
Yep.
And you see the most successful companies like Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
like a Target, like a whatever it is. So it's big companies. They actually double down on their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So how many companies do we know that once the market starts shifting and not in their favor, they start cutting costs at the wrong places?
Absolutely.
And that's the number one thing they do. They start cutting cost on marketing. So that kind of stuck in my head from day one. I'm like, I'm going to be consistently the same in a high market, in a middle market, and a low market, no matter what.
Yeah.
A quick example of me on the real estate side is any Tom, Dick, and Harry can put up a listing, 2 years ago
Right.
or a year ago, and it'll be gone in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
You can take your phone pictures with your iPhone,
Yeah.
which most of the agents did.
Mhm.
They don't do any extra
Demand
marketing.
drove the
Yeah,
transaction.
demand drove it all, and you're
Not
gonna
the
have
marketing.
yeah,
The demand
yeah.
drove it.
It was all demand, and people got their license just to put they didn't even put the correct information on there.
Absolutely.
But there's so much demand that's what happened. But one thing that I'm very proud of is I didn't change myself through this whole process. It happened to us too. Every listing I put up, it went with multiple offers, but I still did my professional photography. I still did my professional videography.
Yeah.
I still wrote descriptions on the pictures.
Yeah.
Every single thing I did, I still set up all of our marketing tools and all that. And so, I spend anywhere between $800 to $1,500 on every listing.
You didn't shortchange the work,
I did not.
even though it
I
was
did not.
easier,
I did not.
right?
Yeah.
You did the work.
Because now with the market shifting, or if the market shifts again down the road, I'm going to consistently keep my brand going.
Yeah.
People are going to see that, well, the Nimesh Patel Group is going to do this no matter what.
That's great. So I'm going to get tactical.
Okay.
Give me a day in the life of a top producing agent. Like what is it? What am I doing? What are the high value activities that I need to be concentrating on as a top producing agent?
There's only one key thing.
Okay.
Lead generation.
Okay.
That's it. You can manage your team, but if you have a big team, then you already have people in place that are managing the others for you.
Systems.
The systems and processes for you. Yes, you can do a 30,000 foot view of it and take a look at it.
Okay.
But you shouldn't be working in your business. You should be working on your
On the
business.
Yep.
Everybody's heard that, right?
Yeah.
So be working on the business. It's literally lead generation. You're the rainmaker.
So break that down to me. Like, unpack that. What is
Unpack
lead
that.
gen?
Unpack that. Well, there's different things. So a top producing agent usually has a realtor or a team leader usually has their calendar filled with blocked, not filled, blocked off. And if they're spending 2 hours a day on lead generation, which would mean actually making phone calls,
Yeah.
having lunches with potential customers, doing pop buys, just being themselves to draw and attract to the brand, that's what they're doing all day long. If they have the systems and processes in place where everything else is being done. Even the servicing, right? They're not doing the servicing. The servicing has all been done their way and the proper way. You're literally in the field keeping a name and being relevant in front of the community.
Got it. So tell me, like,
You want me to break it down even more, don't you?
yeah, think of, an ignorant agent coming in day one, I want to emulate the top, right? So naturally there's a journey to get to that point. But like, when it all starts to translate, the first thing I take away is like, no matter what level you're at, you still got to smile and dial. You still got to make the phone calls. You still got to get out there and outreach, right? So, that
Okay.
a
So
version of lead gen is
Here,
that. Right?
let me break it down even more then. Every day you're getting up, you're going to set aside some time to do whatever is most relevant to you at that moment, which is right now social media.
Yep.
Is easy.
Absolutely.
So get on social media. Two, the other thing that people tend to forget is educating yourself. So in this business, I'm sure like with all businesses and all industries, but especially in this business, you're constantly learning, constantly.
Right.
And if you're not, then you're going to be the dinosaur that we joke around about. And part of that education is for me and for my particular team, for example, I am going to different communities, going to different builders, learning about their inventory, what's going on, understanding the product beyond, so that when I do have a quick phone call conversation with somebody, I already have that mentality. It's not about just what's on MLS or a client telling me, hey, what's going on today? I saw this house over here. No, my client doesn't ever tell me they saw a house. I tell them, hey, I saw this house for you, right?
Good agent should be doing, right?
Yeah, the other part of good agent, education is I go to you. Don't I come to you guys all the time and say, hey, what's going on with interest rates? What new products do you have today?
Right.
I was talking to a particular person and this is their situation. How can you package them into a loan for me? Right. So as I'm learning that, then that gives me extra just motivation to go out and talk to anybody because now I understand the lending side, right? So I'm educating myself on a daily basis on different loan products, on different building products, different inventory products, and I'm educating myself on where the customers are coming from. So I'm analyzing that. Right now, for us in Texas, where's everybody coming from? All over the country.
Yeah.
Forget about just California, but California, New York, Chicago, from all over. So I'm educating myself on how to reach out to people outside of Texas.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Hey, your TikTok game is strong. You'll like
Thank
and
you.
subscribe to this guy. But so like I'm gonna kind of package that together. So basically, strong agents know the where and what house to buy on behalf of their clients.
Correct.
Right? They're knowledgeable. You've got a great ally, with the lending partner like us on how to buy it, right?
Correct.
Because sometimes it's how to buy it, right?
Absolutely.
And
100%.
the structure and the way you're going to get that done. And so that, the team is super important, right? On how to get that done. No, this is fantastic. So I think that was, a good sense of like what a day in the life should look like, right? Obviously getting to the point of building systems, having a great coach, right? I think there's fantastic coaching programs out there, right? Many top brokerages offer that by way of not only the broker owner, but maybe programs to subscribe to, whatever the case may be. If you don't know the mechanics of how to be successful, there's coaches that have been doing this for a long time.
Correct.
That share, usually for a cost, but ultimately sometimes that's the investment you need to make in yourself.
But
right?
I mean, not even sometimes you have to invest in yourself, right? When I sit across the table from a newbie who wants to get my 2 cents on, hey, I want to maybe join you guys. What should I expect? First thing I tell them is you better expect to spend some money on yourself for the next 6 months at the very least, right? And then on and on and on. For example, on my team right now, I require them to spend $1,000 a month on marketing.
Yeah.
Each one of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, they have to. They have to spend. But all of my guys make 6 figures. Why? Because they invest in themselves. They follow my lead, and it's not like I've never done it myself, right? My favorite person of all time is still Michael Jordan, right? You watch his latest series on Netflix, right? and he put something out there, and I actually, took a clip of it and I put it to my team, and he was talking about his team, and he just said, I've never asked them to do anything I've never done myself.
Yeah,
it's the same exact thing here,
yeah, absolutely.
right? So
yeah, you gotta walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right? I'm going to shift a little bit into a different angle.
Sure.
So over the years, naturally, you worked with quite amount of real estate investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different pedigree of buyer. That's a different sales transaction. It's a different negotiation, a different set of lens of what they're looking for. Talk to me about kind of when you get a real estate investor client. What are you looking for? How do you identify opportunity in a market for somebody like that, right? Buying a beautiful home to live in is very different, even though that's, arguably a real estate investment in itself, right? But like, hey, I want to make money.
Yeah,
right?
you're talking about the secondary investment for them now,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And whether it's a secondary investment for them or an actual investment group, right?
Yep.
And that's a loaded question because there's so many different things that you have to analyze. You have to analyze what their ultimate goal is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, when I get an investor client, half my friends are investor clients now.
Absolutely.
Right? They're doing
Leveled
well.
Up.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. They've leveled up. They're doing well, and now they want to put their money somewhere besides just the stock market or whatever else they're putting their money into. They want to put it into real estate. So those are investors. So first thing I do is I want to know what their actual goal is, right?
Yeah.
And let's see how we can realize that goal. If it's a long-term goal, if it's a short-term goal, and then once I understand what they're trying to do, part of my daily thing is to educate myself on everything. Well, part of it is, okay, hey, well, I know that these are some good investments that we can get into. I've done it myself, or some of my other previous clients have. So we get into the part of, are you trying to build a portfolio? Are we trying to do flips? Are we trying to do long-term, this is for your kids' college fund, et cetera?
Right.
And once you analyze that, then you start doing it just like if you were trying to find somebody a house.
Right.
You know what they want, go find it.
Absolutely.
And that's a simple version. I'm sure you want a little bit more of.
No, it's fine. I mean, so like obviously getting to the starting with the destination, the end goal, right?
End goal,
and then working backwards,
exactly.
right? Is there any different strategy you guys deploy in searching for real estate in a market like this, right? When it comes to an investor version versus, primarily you guys are one of the biggest new construction sellers teams in probably the entire state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's a different perspective. Walk me through a strategy like that.
It is, but it's still back to what their end goal is. But then not just their end goal, what they have on hand, right? So if they have cash on hand and they're ready to do rehabs and things like that, great. If they're not cash on hand, or if they don't have cash on hand, then I start to get them into new construction. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more expensive,
right.
But in the long run, it might be better for you because you're in a community where the prices are going up. 2, you're not spending money on rehabbing maintenance and all of that for a couple of years. So, I analyze that and break it down for them on that. Ultimately, it is kind of like trying to buy somebody a house that wants to live here in Sugar Land. It's just understanding your client, right?
Yeah.
Then I have guys that come in and say, hey, look, I want 10, 15, 20 at a time. I have an investor right now that wants to buy 500 homes a year. Okay?
Wow.
500 homes a year.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, are you serious? We looked into it. He's got the money, he's got the cash, all that. I was like, let's start a little slow a little bit,
Sure.
And so we put some analysis together and we just bought 10 homes. Literally, we're closing next week.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And those were new construction. He wasn't ever even thinking new construction, but because of my knowledge of, hey, will this work for you this way? Analyzed it. He goes, absolutely. So now I just put a package together of 75 homes for him, and he's analyzing that right now, and he's probably going to buy those.
Well, that's an unfair advantage that you have over decades of relationship building with the builder community, right? I think you're not going to see that on MLS.
No.
Right?
No,
you're not going to see that, just marketed on a flyer. It's like, hey, I know who to call. I know how to make these opportunities happen, right? Mm-hmm. That's what investors look for, right?
Because the investors, for the most part, they've kind of looked around themselves as well, right? They're not just sitting there, especially the bigger ones. They're not just sitting there thinking, okay, hey, Nimesh, find me something. No, they've looked around, right? So if you have certain connections, for example, I have and investing is not just in housing, right? It's also commercial.
Yeah.
So what do I do if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Nimesh, I want to put some money into commercial. I want to put some money into maybe even REITs and things like that, right? I call you. Because I know you've been doing it.
Sure.
Hey, Purba, hey, got a guy. How can we connect and how can we make this worthwhile for everybody? And, so it is the knowledge that I gain from everyday life, but it's also the years and years of relationship building with people like you, people like, other builders and other agents. I call agents up. In fact, interestingly enough, I called an agent up yesterday and said, hey, look, I have a guy that's looking for 5.5 million for this, etc. I know you've done some of these things in the past. I can't find anything. Can you? He said, well, what do you know? I have something that's off market.
There you go.
Gave it to me. I sent it to my client literally at 10 o'clock last night. They're so ecstatic that this morning they're just like blowing up my phone, like, okay, let's go.
Well, see, that comes full circle, because if you think about it, a new or even up and coming agent or team has to consistently create value to defend your commissions, to defend what other access buyers now have, right? The Zillows and the prop tech companies and the iBuyers and all that stuff. It's a consistent threat, but they've kind of brought down walls of access of data.
Correct.
Right? But the stuff that you're doing creates value that will never live on a website.
Never.
Right? And so, for agents that want to continue to create value and give value to their clients, right? And investors like this are gonna be like, no, I want to work with you and we're a team because you know how to run the back end and know how to get the access of off-market opportunities, right? You just can't do it. There's no playbook for that, right? It's just time, relationships, experience, and the network that you've built over time.
I mean, you just said it best. I couldn't say it any better than that. But what I'll piggyback off of that is that there's nothing wrong with having more access for customers and consumers. There's really not. It's interesting because even as I'm a consumer myself, right?
Yeah,
so when I'm looking at whether it's housing or whatever it is, I can't find information, I get a little upset. But then ultimately I'll go to a professional that knows how to get that information. So with all the information sharing that's been going on and all the data, because that's the name of the game these days with all the big brands, is data. You still have to have somebody that understands it. You still have to have somebody that can analyze it properly. You still have somebody to tell you that, okay, that's just raw data. But do you know that data looks good online, but right next to you is a nuclear plant?
Right.
That's
granular knowledge.
Yeah, that's taking it to an extreme.
Especially for an out-of-state buyer, right?
Yeah,
that's no clue how what's going on in the neighborhood.
What's happened over the last couple of years? We've been selling houses to people that have never even come here.
Right.
They've just done a couple of Facebook Lives or videos, and they're buying them, but they can get taken for a ride if you don't have the right experienced agent.
Especially in a market like Houston, where we've got kind of weird zoning rules and suspect businesses can be right next door.
Right next door. I had a client called me, or a customer called me and said, "Can you come list my house?" So I'm like, "Sure. Let me set up an appointment." I looked it up really quick. He just bought it 6 months ago. I'm like, "Whoa!" And it's new construction. He bought it 6 months ago and it looked really nice. I'm like, wondering why he's selling. So I show up there. And it's across the street from a lake, so his house, the front looks out to a lake. It was a nice house, and I looked at him and I said, "Why are we selling? Just out of curiosity. You just bought it 6 months ago." He said, "Because I bought it sight unseen from an agent that told me that it was a lake property."
On the lake.
On the lake.
Oh no.
And so when he moved here. He assumed that the lake was going to be in his backyard, but it was not. It was across the street in the front of him. So, I mean, how bad do I feel for that guy? I mean, I reduced my commissions just to get him so he doesn't lose any money. He got that done. But that's what I'm afraid of. Or that's what people should be afraid of out there, that you don't have the right professional and the expert, that can show you, tell you, and all that. And I know that's an extreme case, but still, that happened to a guy.
I mean, you're right. I think about it like, if I think about the village of our communities and our sphere and like how we trade knowledge and information on any transaction, like hypothetically, if I was going to go buy a new car, right? Nowadays, it's your social media first, right? Your reach and your audience, and saying, hey, who knows somebody at XYZ dealership or whatever? Oh, wait, hold on, I know a guy, right? It's not like, oh, let me just go Google and go to the website and just go to their, whatever. It's like, wait, hold on, let me call somebody I know because there's inherent trust. Somebody can help me navigate, understands the market. There's a professional that I have some connection to, right? So I think, like your brand for sure is like, I know the guy. Like, hey, I'm buying real estate, I'm buying Sugarland, I'm buying whatever. You're the guy, right? That's your brand, right? And so I think all of us, in our marketing and our strategy, want to be that guy in our industry, right? That
hope so.
Trusted source, right? I think it all kind of goes together, right? If you really think about it.
Well, really quick,
Yeah.
saying all that, bringing it back to what you were asking earlier in the conversation about, a newbie agent. You're spending your time, you're spending your money, you're spending all kinds of things out there to try to generate leads to where you get to that, become that guy.
Right.
You become that expert. People just call me now.
Yeah.
I don't have to go reaching for it. They call me.
Correct.
Because I've set myself up
Yeah.
that way, and I hope that everyone sets themselves up that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about kind of the next couple of years. What are you seeing? Give me the crystal ball. I know none of us have one. Give me
Yeah.
yours.
Well, I still like to consider myself young. So I still feel I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of passion for this industry still.
Yeah.
So it's not like I want to slow down.
Sure.
I mean, I think meeting fine people like you and quite a few people in the industry, not just from Remax or in my sphere only, just getting out and about all around Houston. I'm learning more and more because I am learning based, right? I think I'm a life student is what I am. And so as a life student, I want to learn from people like you guys to see what else I can get into, what else I can get into. But as far as a crystal ball for real estate here, we have a lot of agents that have been licensed, gotten their licenses recently, and they're still cranking them out. I think a lot of them are going to be in for a rude awakening. It, my take on the industry, and I don't want to date this, but my take on the industry over the past 2 years is that's been abnormal.
Yep.
We're normalizing now,
Yeah.
and as opposed to what the news media and all of the some of the agents that aren't in the know, they say out there that, oh my God, rates are too high and prices are too high. This is the normal market.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had an abnormality for the past 2.5
Correct.
years, 3 years. So I'm kind of excited for that next couple of years to where it's going to weed out some people that aren't professionals and true experts in our industry. But I'm excited for Houston in general, Texas for sure, but Houston in general because it's still a great place to live. Its economy is doing absolutely amazing overall. We've diversified, from med to tech to oil and gas to everything here, education as well in Houston. So as we continue to diversify, people keep moving here.
Yeah.
As people keep moving here, I think we're still the most diverse county, or Fort Bend County is the most diverse county in America. I think Houston is the most diverse city, even more than New York,
Right.
which is unbelievable. So as the diversity keeps setting in here, I'm just so excited about the growth possibilities that keeps growing and growing and growing.
I'm going to bring your sports analogy back, right? So the last 2 years were the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the market, right? And he made it easy to be the Bulls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now Jordan retired, right? That's the market we're about to be in.
Yeah.
How do the Bulls continue to be the Bulls now without Michael Jordan, right? They have to get better. It's been decades since they've been great.
Yeah.
So clearly they have not sharpened their tool. But that's kind of what we're feeling. Like the Michael Jordan's gone.
That's
He's
interesting.
out, right?
Yeah.
So like we all got, if we want to be the Bulls and continue to build championships without Michael Jordan, we got to get really good. We got to build a good team, get our skills, sharpen our tool belt, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of, that's kind of what it feels like.
But it's really interesting that you put it that way because ultimately then what is it? So all this time we relied on Michael Jordan. If we're the Bulls, we relied on Michael Jordan,
Absolutely.
right? So as an agent, what have we been relying on? The market.
Yeah.
So ultimately, whose responsibility is it? It's your own.
Yeah.
You have to have an innate quality within you
Yeah.
to want to do better, to become the next Michael Jordan, or to become, that great to get to that level. So that's what I'm excited to see over the next couple of years because I'm going all in.
Yeah.
I'm going all in with my team 100%. They're like, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? Because I want to make sure that
Career-minded professionals, you have no choice.
you have no choice. If this is what you want to do and do it well, and let's be completely honest here. This is a profession where there is no ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to work at it, you can do very well financially. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with saying that you're doing this financially. I mean, I'm not doing this for my health for sure,
Right.
So if it's there, you can go get it, but you have to want to go get it.
Correct.
And you have to put yourselves in positions to succeed, which is educating yourself, lead generating, but then also meeting more and more people that are like-minded that you can actually learn from or share with or help them. And ultimately you all grow together. So.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for taking the time, first of all. How do people get in touch?
How to get in touch with me? Oh, you can call me on my cell or you can text me at 567-9400, 832
Numbers never
567.
changed in like
It
20
hasn't
years.
changed in 20 years. Yeah,
We'll make
832.
sure we throw that on the screen.
Yeah,
at the end of this.
567-9400. Or you can email me at nimesh@remaxfine.com, you know?
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Appreciate you taking the time with me.
I appreciate you
20
having
years.
me.
We got
Yeah.
20 more behind us before we probably hang these boots up.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling myself Michael Jordan now that you keep bringing that
Oh, look
analogy
at that,
in there.
right?
I'm kidding.
All right, man.
Thanks
This has
for
been great. Yep, brother.
Good stuff.
Cheers.